evening, Rian Kutsia, Fortis Proactive Defense Solutions. I am back with part 2 of a masterclass in ammo selection with Francois Roux and Wildenboer, 2 of the senior instructors on the Lone Operator course. Gentlemen, welcome back.
Say, Rian, good to be back.
Thanks, Rian. Good to talk to you.
And again, I just want to mention to the viewers, I mentioned this at the end of the first video, of the first part 1 of this 2-part series, that this conversation is as a direct result of a question asked on one of the previous videos by one of our viewers, if we could discuss this. And then I approached Roux first and asked him what he thought, and he said, yes, it's a can of worms, but let's open it. And so we have. So questions and comments, we see them and we keep an eye out and we hear what you say. Thank you so much for going to the hassle. I'm gonna jump straight in. I want to talk about suppressed shooting, subsonic rounds, like 147 grain in 9mm and 220 in .300. Why are these preferred, and why should you consider, or rather, what should you consider when picking ammo for suppressed use? Roux?
So when we talk about subsonic, the term refers to a bullet either flying faster or slower than the speed of sound. So when you talk about handgun ammunition, and the velocity of handgun ammunition, often you're talking feet per second. So an average 9mm round flies about maybe 1,100, 1,200 feet per second. The speed of sound at sea level is about 1,125 feet per second. But that changes depending on velocity and atmospheric conditions, and it's a whole big scientific discussion. The big reason for, in my opinion, for subsonic shooting is actually more associated with long guns. So often with 223s or other large rifle calibers, you shoot subsonic rounds for a bit of noise, the benefit of noise, so it doesn't make that sharp crack moving through the air. On handguns, to be quite honest with you, I haven't really felt, in terms of the bang or the recoil, much difference between subsonic rounds and supersonic rounds. What you do get, though, is an impact on recoil as you slow down the bullet, as we've discussed on the previous videos. To me, it doesn't really factor into the choice of ammunition, either for range use or for self-defense use, whether a round ends up being supersonic or subsonic. To me, in my world, and disclaimer, this is just my opinion. To me, it's more about the ballistic performance of that round when it hits the target, as well as how well myself or a shooter can handle the recoil of that gun, and whether it's supersonic or subsonic, it doesn't matter that much in handgun shooting. But I do know in long gun shooting, it does start playing a role if you want to shoot quietly, or if you don't want to, if there's some other thing that you want to achieve.
Okay, Francois, thoughts?
Yeah, Roux covered that very well, but I would like to add this, because I've had this question and argument with many people. Suppressed ammunition or firearms does not mean it's a John Wick thing where you can shoot at each other in a crowded area with nobody hearing it. Suppressed basically means that it comes down to basically hearing safe, where you might not necessarily need to wear hearing protection to be able to shoot that firearm. That's basically what it means. It's still a mechanism, a steel mechanism working. It still makes a pop and a crack. So it's not the movie stuff. I've had arguments with people over this, why it should be banned, because you can just go in and kill people and nobody would know. Yeah, the movies have exaggerated this extremely well, but that is not what it is. So just to kind of help get that information out there.
Francois, it's not very nice of you to burst people's bubbles like that.
No, it's 100%. It's 100%. He's 100% correct. I mean, if you stand next to a unsuppressed or a suppressed gun without hearing protection, yes, it's better than a non-suppressed gun, but still, it is really, really loud. If you need to imagine that going off inside of a car or a house, you're definitely gonna hear it and feel it.
Notice how I just said to Francois that it's not very nice to pop people's bubbles like that. And then Roux carries on with the same point without a pause. So to the viewers, I'm sorry, I really tried on this one.
Yeah,
But they
sorry.
really just shut me out. I tried. You saw it. Thank you. We did touch on overpressure rounds in the previous one. Roux, I think it was you talking about
Yeah.
plus P, plus pressure, and plus P plus. When are they appropriate? And what should shooters be cautious of in terms of wear and safety? Let's just expand on that.
So there's an organization that you can Google, SAAMI, SAAMI for short. They standardized basically the pressure ratings on various calibers. A plus P round basically just states that the chamber pressure or the developed pressure inside of the chamber of that gun exceeds the standard pressure as given by SAAMI for that caliber. So what higher pressure behind a bullet means is more velocity, but it also does mean more strain on your firearm. So you'll find for a 9mm caliber, you get in 124 grains and I think 115, you do get plus P and plus P plus ratings for those bullet weights. But for the 147, I don't think you get those plus P and plus P plus classifications. So plus P means that the pressure is rated above the standard, but still lower than a specific limit. And plus P plus means it's higher even than plus P, and there's no pressure ceiling for those kinds of rounds. So they're appropriate if you are trying to shoot a specific bullet weight at a faster velocity, at a higher velocity than what it normally would come out of the barrel at. But there is more pressure inside of your gun. So some of the older handguns are not actually physically or metallurgically necessarily designed for withstanding those higher pressures. It's like the 5.56 by 45 versus 223 Remington argument. It's really just about pressure and how the pressure is developed in the chamber. For the shorter guns, like your compacts and subcompacts, often people tend to opt for higher pressure or overpressure rounds because they want to achieve a minimum bullet velocity coming out of the barrel. But it's got a shorter barrel, so now they want to up the pressure a little bit so that that bullet reaches a specific velocity. Remember, if you're shooting hollow points, you need that bullet to travel the minimum velocity for it to actually expand like it's designed to. If it's traveling too slow, you can actually get insufficient expansion of that hollow point and thereby not good enough energy transfer and then overpenetration. So your hollow point is really functioning just as a full metal jacket if it's traveling too slow. Okay, so for guns with longer barrels, it's not always really necessary, but this is where it comes down to preference. The higher pressure guns, you do feel it in the recoil a little bit, depending on the gun and depending on the shooter. I know Francois shoots plus B rounds out of his pistol. I carry 147 grain hollow points, but they're not overpressure. But for me and him, the felt recoil is probably more or less the same. It's about what you like, what you want, what the velocity of the bullet is coming out of the barrel, things like that. But it's really just a degree of overpressure to reach a faster velocity coming out of the barrel.
Before going over to Roux, I'm going to ask the viewers if you've used overpressure ammo or if you are using overpressure ammo. Let us know in the comments, and also let us know if you've ever had any problems or not. We'd be very interested to hear from you. Roux, your thoughts on this? Francois, sorry.
Yeah, so Rian, so as far as I've the few articles and stuff I've read, so this may vary from one round to the next, all of that stuff. Your experience may vary. Is that a plus P is usually more or less 10% more than the standard round, and then a plus P plus is usually about 20%. But this is now something that if their standard round is already loaded at 70% of what it can be, then your plus 20% is not going to make that much of a difference. So it makes a big difference on the manufacturer, what kind of rounds they use, and all of that. And yeah, and then what Roux said as well, you need that expansion from the hollow points. I like the word hydroshock, because that's also one of the things that we spoke about in the previous videos. A hollow point doesn't necessarily expand on everything. We've had the discussion with a lot of people. No, I'm going to shoot through glass and then it's going to expand and then it's going to have no effect any further. Where a round doesn't actually expand, it needs a moisture, wet, fleshy environment to expand. That's why the Americans like using the ballistic gel, because it gives them a substitute instead of shooting flesh. Because YouTube and all of that stuff and shooting pigs and so on gets frowned upon. So yeah, so to test rounds, and the FBI also uses the ballistic gel to test it. So you need that minimum velocity. I've seen it on my .25 little baby pistol. They've got hollow points, but they don't expand because it's basically just a gimmick. It doesn't have the speed. That barrel is 2 inches long. It's not gonna do the velocities that's required. It's just what it is. But yeah, experiences may vary on this. Yeah, from one round to the next, one manufacturer to the next. Yeah, it is just one of those things, and you have to test it and put it in your firearm, see if it works, see if it feeds. There's work to be done on this. It's not a one size fits all, as we always do say. It's something you have to go play with and go practice.
Awesome. If we're looking at a self-defense situation, Francois, I'm going to go with you while I'm busy with you. How do you balance the need for penetration with the risk of over-penetration? And how does bullet weight and type factor into that equation?
So yeah, so in my personal opinion, I want as little penetration as possible, but still having the maximum effect. So the FBI always talks about 7 inches of penetration, give or take, but that's also going to vary by clothing and whatever you guys got on, how thick is it, how uh, overweight, all of those things. So that's kind of what you're striving for. So I get good results with my plus P ammo and my pistol. It feels good in my hand. It shoots well. I'm happy with the kind of rounds I shoot. The tests that have been done on it. There's quite a few guys that do tests on it and um proper research, so you can actually go check up the data sheets and so on. So I do like that. And yeah, it's basically that's I feel a little bit safer knowing that the chances of over penetration is less. It's not zero. It's never going to be zero. There's no guarantees in this game. You can hit something stupid like a bone and it doesn't go any further than that. It ricochets
Sure.
off. I've seen videos of guys getting shot almost straight into the forehead and the round actually going around the skull and exiting out the back. We've actually, there was a picture circling this week. I don't know if everybody saw it, but a guy got shot in the back of the
I saw
head,
it.
and it says, yeah, they don't make ammo like they used to because the round was just stuck basically in his skin. So yeah, there's 1,000 things that could have gone wrong there. That could be old ammo, that could contamination,
Sure.
anything like that. So another thing to bring up, I don't know if we'll touch on it later, but changing ammo. So just changing out your ammo to keep the quality, contamination, and all of that high as possible. I've got a rule. I do it every 5 years when I renew my self-defense license as required by South African law. Then I just buy a new batch of ammo. My standard mags I carry with me all get new hollow points. And I make sure it's at least the ones I get. Sometimes it's difficult to get what you want. So yeah, that's my basic take and rule on that.
That's a good point. Roux, your ideas on that?
No, Francois said it all. I would just like to offer some advice to guys going to the shops and being sold the most expensive hollow points that shop stocks. It's not. I'm not saying those most expensive ones are bad. They may in fact be very very good, but there's a lot of very good brands out there, and the the performance differences between the premium hollow point brands. We're talking. I'm not going to name one specific one that I prefer, but Winchester, Hornady, Federal. The differences in performance between their premium hollow points is really marginal. So I'm not saying don't buy the expensive stuff. I'm saying just do a little bit of reading on what hollow points are, what they are supposed to achieve, which hollow points have a proven track record, which ones are there that have extensive testing done on them. Don't just walk in and take the salesperson's advice at face value. You do get salespeople that are very knowledgeable and that help you superbly, but do your own research as well. You do get, for instance, hollow points that are sold as reloadable bullets, and the rule of thumb for us is don't carry reloads necessarily, because your own quality control at home is not as good as the quality control at the Winchester factory. Just naming an example, your quality control may be good, but ask any shooter that reloads and that spends lots of time on the range. Even your very good reloads, every now and then they fail. Every now and then there's a primer that isn't seated properly, or there's a piece of brass that hasn't been sized properly. So the idea is to carry ammunition that has gone through a rigorous quality control procedure, and that doesn't necessarily mean your own reloads in your garage. There are also gimmicks out there that have very limited self-defense value, and well, this is just my opinion, right? But these very fast 65 grain hollow points that travel at something silly like 1,600 feet per second, and they weigh, like I say, 65 grains. There's been some reports, just do your own research. Don't buy every gimmick that you see. Buy something that you know is going to be reliable. There's been a lot of test work done on it. Do your own little bit of reading as well.
Okay. Let's talk about frangible and specialty rounds. These are marketed for specific environments like shoot houses or home defense and so on. What's your take on their effectiveness and reliability, Roux?
I think that connects very well with what I was just saying about these specialty rounds that often, in my opinion, I think you need to be very careful of what you buy and why you buy them. I think in South Africa, most of the houses have brick walls. If you are at all concerned about overpenetration, you should adapt your ammunition, but you should also never forget about the importance of being situationally aware when you start firing inside of a house. That does include also being mindful of where there is drywalling or where there is plywood that potentially you can shoot through. The problem with some of these frangible rounds is that they sometimes they don't have the mass or the composition to actually penetrate deep enough. So you get like, I mean, if you're shooting, it's the same as with hunting. If you're shooting big game with a very fast round that doesn't stay, that's basically loses competence and loses integrity as soon as it hits a target, then you get the round basically splintering inside of the target, but not really penetrating deep enough to injure any of the vital organs. In my opinion, there's very limited value in spending lots of money to buy these very specialty frangible, type ammunition. Just for the listeners outside, frangible means it basically breaks apart. It's designed to break apart. And I think in the context of what we want to achieve in self-defense, is for something to penetrate deep enough, like Francois said, but do enough damage to actually end the fight. Now, if you have something that splinters open on someone's chest bone or hip or something before it reaches the vital organs, then that's also not good. And they're often very light, so they don't necessarily, carry much momentum, especially after they've now passed through a barrier or something. So you need to think very carefully before you buy something like that. I've got very little experience, but I'm not a big proponent of those extremely speciality. If you start talking like armor piercing rounds and things like that, often you don't really find them in handguns, because handguns they simply just don't fire fast enough with a high enough grain of ammunition. I mean, the armor piercing rounds that you find are often in large calibers. Like I know bulletproofs are rated for armor piercing 30-06 rounds, and I think that's about the minimum caliber where you would expect to find something like an armor piercing round. Typically those things go into 50 calibers and up, or so for like anti-materiel weapons. But like if someone tells you a 9mm round is armor piercing, you should sort of just take it with a pinch of salt.
Francois, have you got thoughts on that?
Yeah, Roux covered it. Just to add on to basically what he's saying is, yeah, it does feel a bit more like a gimmick. It's a very expensive gimmick at that. And to add to it is basically us as humans, unfortunately, are very creative at killing each other. And there's a reason why fragmenting rounds have not become as popular as everything else. So yeah, if the technology was really
Yep.
that great, then yeah, it speaks for itself.
Yeah, everybody would be carrying it.
Exactly.
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay. So, last question. If you had to recommend a simple framework for the average gun owner out there to choose the right ammo based on things like purpose, firearm type, personal skill, what would that framework be, Francois?
Yeah, with this, I'd like to lead with please go and test the rounds. I know it's expensive. It's usually hollow points usually sold in 25 round packets, 25 round packets. Take 5 and shoot them out of your firearm. Make sure they cycle and make sure they work. I've had guys on the range that stood next to me where they did not feed. For some whatever reason, they did not feed. And I've actually had a guy on the range that I was talking that I was going to test my new rounds just to make sure that they work. And he said, "Oh, he's never tested these. He's going to just see what they do." So loaded 5 and none of his 5 went off. And this is now the ammo that he was carrying with him every day to defend his life with. And 5 rounds in a row not going off is you're beyond dead at that.
That's
Yeah,
a nightmare
so
situation.
please go and test it. Make sure it works. See how it feels. If it's not comfortable and you're scared of shooting the firearm, then there's no point. Get a lower load. May do something else, but just go and practice with it and see what works for you. And like Roux said, don't take a salesperson's advice off face value, because they always want to sell you the most expensive thing. It's just what it is. It's they make their money their way, we make our money our way. So yeah, go practice it, make sure it works, see what works in your firearm. So yeah, that is the key advice that I would give.
Thank you. Roux?
Well, my personal opinion is carry high quality hollow points for your self-defense. And I wouldn't stress too much about whether it's 147 grains or 124 grains, or what kind is it now, a Hornady or a Winchester, or I wouldn't stress about that too much. Carry high quality hollow points that you can depend on, and then shoot a lot on the range. Practice as much as you can, and lastly, make sure that your range ammo is not underpowered, that you actually shoot with ammunition that sufficiently simulates that recoil that you are going to feel when you start shooting your self-defense ammo. I'm not saying load up your range ammo and wear out your gun or your hands or become scared of shooting it, but shoot. If you buy ammunition, then your typical Fiocchis or SMBs or your range ammo. There's so many. They usually have a good enough power factor, so they usually provide enough recoil for you to simulate that. And then shoot as much as you can. Don't obsess over these things too much. There's differences between the ammo, but I wouldn't break my head over it. Like I said, carry high quality hollow points and spend a lot of time on the range and dry fire, and then spend a lot of time on the range. You can't let that in the moment that your life is in danger, you can't be startled by the recoil. That recoil needs to be a familiar feeling to you, so shoot often. Yes. And carry good quality stuff. It's the same as with your guns and your gloves and your everything, your holster. Have good quality stuff. I'm not partial to any brand or make or whatever, but have high quality hollow points and shoot a lot. That's my framework.
No, I think that works, and I just want to add to that also, invest in proper training. And on that point, if you are interested in learning more about the lone operator courses that we are always referring to, there's a link in the video description below. Please click on that and go get all the info. And we hope to see you on one of the lone operator ranges one of these days. So to the viewers, if you like the content and you appreciate it, give us a like and also subscribe to our channel. Help us grow it so we can reach more and more people. Roux, Francois, thank you so much for your inputs and your time. Highly appreciate it as always. Have a good one.
Thank you, Rian. Always a pleasure.
Thanks, Rian.